Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last few years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but they have built a very good reputation for themselves during that short lifetime, and the good reputation that they have is very well justified based on my previous experiences. These guys are unquestionably best known for their kind of modern sour beers, as they call them, but they have been experimenting a little bit with different styles in recent times, and from what I gather, those are very nice as well, and you will see a few of those reviews on the channel over the next little while, so keep your eyes peeled. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one that I've had for maybe about a year and a half, if memory serves me correctly, one that I forgot about until I opened up my mum and dad's fridge once again, and I think it is about time that we open this one up and see what it's all about. It's in a style category that I've had from this brewery many times before, and they always tend to be pretty good actually. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Portobello, which is out to the east of Edinburgh, the Scottish capital, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Vault City Brewing. So this particular beer is called Strawberry Stars. It comes in at 9.5% ABV, and I guess for that reason we have to call this one an Imperial Fruited Sour. But you can see this beer has a good little bit of glitter and things in it as well. And this was actually brewed for Vault City's 3rd birthday, just after I think they moved into their own brewery, which is kind of cool. Most of the Vault City beers these days are of course in cans and things, but I do still have a couple of bottles that I'm going to be working my way through over the next few videos, and you'll see these appearing over the next little while. But yeah, Strawberry Stars, 9.5% ABV, strawberry fruited sour beer. This is supposed to be quite a nice one actually, so yeah, let's crack on and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Vault City Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things, and we will be adding to that quite regularly over the next little while. But check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, and you'll see what we have. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you once again about Vault City Brewing. So Vault City Brewing, as I've told you before, are originally from Edinburgh, and the company was founded back in 2018 by Johnny Horn, Adele Wilkie and Stephen Smith-Hay. So Johnny worked at the Hanging Bat on Lothian Road in the city, and Stephen and Adele were regular customers, and over time they just became quite good friends, you know, talking about different beers and all these kind of things. But at the time Johnny was studying, and he was also a keen home brewer, as was Stephen, and this was one of the kind of roots of their friendship. So the two began planning a brewery together, and Adele contributed a lot of the ideas in the early stage and decided to join them in the venture. But Johnny was a great fan of Belgian lambics and sours, and this really began to rub off on Adele and Stephen, and they felt that there was a real gap in the Scottish beer scene for a sour beer brewery, and so they decided that this was the route they were going to take with their own company. But initially they didn't think so much about making money, so they set up what they called a glorified home brewing kit as their main brewery in Stephen and Adele's kitchen, and they began brewing there weekly back in July of 2018. But over the next year, they began visiting different beer festivals and just spreaded the word about their beers. And they started then brewing their beers at 71 Brewing up in Dundee, and they spent a total of 16 months there before relocating to their own purpose-built facility in Portobello out to the east of Edinburgh. But during the time in Dundee, Johnny decided that he wanted to leave the company to found his own brewery. This is, of course, called Holy Goat. The main reason for that was that Vault City, Stephen and Adele wanted to kind of have like a base beer and kind of mess around with it and do lots of different things that way and experiment in that sense, whereas he wanted to do more brewing lots of different beers actually. So it was just a kind of difference in brewing mentalities, and it was a kind of amicable split from what I understand. But these days Vault City have the Wee Vault Bar, which is near the Haymarket station in Edinburgh, pretty much right up the road from it, in fact, about less than a 2-minute walk. And they very recently opened up another tap room in Portobello, which is called the Porty Vault. And as of July 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 245 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And the other thing to note about the brewery is that the name Vault City is taken from the Edinburgh South Side Vaults, which were in the arches of the South Side Bridge in Edinburgh. These were home to like workshops and taverns and things like this. They wanted a local name for their brewery when they opened it up. But that is everything I can really tell you about Vault City for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So let's get on with this one then and see what it's all about. So I'm just going to tip this to get the glitter going through this, because that's mainly the point of the beer. But you can see the artwork on this one is what we saw from Vault City. I'm not sure if this beer is about a year old or a year and a half or something like this. It is very slightly past its best by date or drink before date at this point, only like 2 or 3 weeks, but it should still be fine. If it's 9.5%, it's an Imperial Sour, it should be alright, but you can see that there. There's the old Vault City brewing cap on this one, but I think that's going to be a pain because of the light. But yeah, this is a 375ml bottle. I honestly can't remember what price I paid for this, but it tells you a wee bit about the beer on the side. So, Strawberry Stars. It's our 3rd birthday. To celebrate, we've decided to take one of our favourite beers into the stratosphere, from the skies to the stars. Strawberries, hibiscus and vanilla collide in this imperial version of Strawberry Skies. I'm sure I've reviewed that on the channel. Clear glass bottles show off our unapologetic glitter beer. This is mind-bending modern sour beer at its finest, and at the extreme edge of us pushing the boundaries of what beer can be. This is everything we're about, dialed up to max, because it's our birthday and we feel like it. So yeah, I think that was one of the main reasons why I got this one, because I did enjoy Strawberry Skies. That was an awesome beer. It's an Imperial Strawberry Sour, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, as I say, 9.5% ABV this one. Strawberry Stars. This should be good. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go on. I'm just going to be very cautious with this because I've flipped this about, so I'm hoping there's not going to be too much in the way. Ah yes, it went everywhere. That's kind of how it goes. So there you are. Should have done this one over the sink. That's kind of how it goes. I'm going to pause this video and get this beer out into the glass. I will catch you guys in just a minute. Alright guys, well, we successfully controlled the glittery bottle explosion that we had. It's not often that you get a bottle explosion on the channel, but yeah, it would have to be the one that has all the glitter in it. That's just kind of how it goes. So I film in my dad's study. His desk has a little bit of glitter on it, as does his mat. I'm just curious to see whether he notices. But just typical. But anyway, as you can see, we've got the beer poured. We've just got a little bit of it that's kind of settled down in there. I think we managed to salvage the majority of it, to be honest. I think we maybe only lost about 50 millilitres or something like that. But anyway, so you can see that the beer poured fairly decently in the end. You've got a lovely kind of glittery edge to it, which you guys are seeing on the camera there. I can see that. But yeah, the head on this one with about 75 or 80% of the beer, you can see that it's got a half finger of a frothy, I would say very glittery, kind of medium beige coloured head. You can see so it's bigger bubbles toward the surface of the liquid and a few foamier ones just going further up. I'll let you just have a little closer look at that. But obviously this beer, it is, as I said, just a little bit after its best before date, because this is one that Peter, the clueless drinker, actually kept for me and then sent it on up to me because I asked him to pick up one of these. So yeah, it's maybe just don't keep your with these kind of sour beers, don't keep them too long. I guess that's the lesson to take from here. And obviously I was being tired and dumb and flicked the thing upside down to get the glitter to go through it for you. So that wasn't smart either. But yeah, you can see the beer has this kind of dark, murky sort of jobby brown colour to it. I think that's fair to describe it. It's like a glittery jobby colour, this one, to be honest with you. I think that's the best way to describe it. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour as well. And that's particularly worth thinking about when it comes to the modern sour beers, such as the ones that like Vault City and Holy Goat do. But yeah, in terms of the appearance of this beer, when I've had strawberry sours before, they do give you this kind of murky, kind of brown colour, to be honest with you. They don't really give you a very bright red colour. And this one also had hibiscus in it as well, and a bit of vanilla, which kind of makes sense. And a lot of the Vault City sour beers have wheat and oats, which kind of accounts for the kind of murkiness of the beer. So yeah, the colour of this one kind of makes sense. And then you've got the fabulous glitter in there, which is in the glass and all over my dad's desk now. So yeah, that's how it goes. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need about the appearance of this one. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what Strawberry Stars is gonna offer us. Let's do this. I mean, it smells really nice, actually. And we know this from the Vault City beers before. You are guaranteed to get a good quality sour beer from Vault City. So yeah, for me, it kind of gives you what you'd expect if you know this brewery. You have a little bit of sharp, tart strawberry at the top of the nose, and then everything else is quite. It kind of takes a little bit of time to show its face, if you like. So yeah, the backbone of the beer, you do have a little bit of a kind of fresh, white bready bread crust, but not overly much. So a little bit of that in there. There's a wee touch of woodiness to the beer as well, but again, that's very minimal. Above that, you start to get, there's a little touch of like wholemeal brown bread, a little bit of white brown bread, but then you start to get more and more of this kind of typical petit filou, yogurty, fromage frais type thing. The aroma that you get out of this reminds me a lot of the Munch Bunch yogurts that my mum used to put in my lunchbox when I was a wee boy going to school. You get a lot of that in this one, and you quite often find that this is because of the oats in the recipe. So yeah, as I say, brown bread, the bread crust, a little bit of brown bread, a lot of white bread, yogurty petit filou. There's a nice kind of oaty, creamy type thing coming out of this one too, which I think is great. So yeah, lovely oaty, kind of creamy character coming out of the beer. And then yeah, lovely sort of oaty, creamy character coming out of the beer. And then you have some really nice kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of things coming out of it as well. Like, you can smell that in the top of the nose. As I've often said, quite often these modern sour beers like this, they're very simple in terms of their flavour and aroma profile, but if they're done well, they can just be really, really nice beers, and that's kind of what you quite often get with Vault City and Holy Goat in my experience. But yeah, as I say, I do get quite a little bit of vanilla out of this one. You've got the lovely kind of oaty creaminess in there on the top, and then a little bit of a like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of this. But yeah, interesting stuff. Now with this one, I have to say, I'm very curious to know whether this has hops in it or not. When it comes to sour beers, there are a few different things you can do with hops. Back in the day when they were doing the Heuses and when you were talking about Heuses and Flanders Reds and things like this, they would use older hops that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, whereas that's not so much the case these days. But there's a bit of a debate among the modern sour beer breweries. On the one hand, you have the likes of Holy Goat and Vault City here in Scotland who like to use hops, whereas the modern sour beer breweries in Sweden, such as Elm 11, Fermenterarna, Duck Pond, they don't tend to use hops. So it was often argued that hoppy bitterness could detract a little bit from the sour side of the beer, and if you use fruits as adjuncts in the beer as well, it kind of takes away, it kind of nullifies a little bit of the green component of the hop in any case. So yeah, there is a little bit of a debate about whether you should use hops or not. I'm curious to know whether this beer uses hops, because they're not listed in, they are actually listed here in the ingredients list. But yeah, sometimes I think it's with this one, the green component is, this beer is obviously about a year old at the time of drinking, but the hoppy character is still quite vibrant in this one. So you get a little touch of earthiness out of it, very bright floral character, and also quite a little bit of zesty grassiness. I'd be very curious to know exactly what hop they have used in this. But yeah, the green component in this one is pretty active, I have to say, and that adds a little bit more complexity to the beer. On the fruity side of things with this one, I think you've got a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, bright floral note, bright grassy note, and I think that's all you really need to say about the green component. But beyond this, you've got quite a little bit. The strawberry character in this one is very sharp and very tart, I have to say. And quite often when I've had strawberry, I think I've had 2 or 3 strawberry sours from Vault City in the past, and they've always been quite mellow and quite juicy, not quite as sharp in their aroma as this one's been. So that's sort of the interesting point to make about this beer, I would say. But underneath that, of course, you've got the more kind of candied strawberries. You've got a really nice kind of like, you've got a candied strawberry in there. You've got a nice sort of you've got a little bit of a kind of figgy note to it as well, which I think is quite interesting too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together for me is really quite nice in that sense. Really sharp tart strawberries in it, juicy kind of like figgy blackcurranty notes underneath, and yeah, you've got all the other notes from the malt and hops and things that we've described. It's a really interesting beer, this one, in terms of its aroma, and I think it's quite it really is quite interesting just to test it and see what it's all about. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it, especially with some of these really random sour beers that Vault City can do. But I think it is about time that we try this one. So this one is the Exploding Strawberry Stars, a 9.5% imperial fruited sour beer, I guess we can say, from Vault City Brewing in Portobello, out to the east of Edinburgh here in Scotland. One to celebrate their 3rd birthday. So happy, I think they're getting closer to their 5th birthday now. Happy birthday, belated birthday to Vault City Brewing Company. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, once again from Vault City, that is pretty damn good, I have to say. Wouldn't have expected anything less. You know, the beers you get from these guys are really solid, actually. But I'm curious about this, because like I say, this bottle that I have is a little bit older, and this does feel like one of the sharper and more tart beers that I've had from Vault City over the years. And we must have reviewed about 15 or 20 beers from these guys at this point in time. But as I say, it certainly feels a little bit sharper and more tart than some of the other ones we've had from them in the past. So yeah, food for thought there. Definitely a bit of food for thought. But I will say straight away, this is a really nice beer. It's very in keeping with the vibe that this brewery has when I think about the other beers that I've tried from them. And it's also, just generally speaking, a very nice beer. At 9.5% though, it does hide its alcohol very well. So you have to be aware of that. Some of these Vault City beers are pretty dangerous. So, yeah, this is really nice actually. Good little bit of sharpness, nice bit of juiciness. It gives you a little bit more malty sweetness the more that you drink of it as well, and you just have that little bit of hoppy character to it as well. Yeah, nothing I can fault with this beer. It's as I say, in keeping with the standards that I would expect of the brewery, and it's a generally good example of the style category too. So yeah, I think we can go and have a look at this one a bit more in depth. So we'll start on that middle third of the palate then, as we always do. The backbone of the beer, you have a lovely kind of fresh wholemeal kind of brown bready bread crust just forming the backbone of the beer. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of you do get a lovely little bit of kind of woody character coming out of the beer, and that becomes a little bit more pungent the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, a little bit of a more kind of woody pungency the further forward into the aftertaste that you go, which is nice. And on top of the bread crust, you get a little touch of a wholemeal brown bread, then a white bready character sitting on top of that. But for me, this beer has the next layer up from that is this really like sharp yogurty type thing. As I said earlier, it reminded me of Petit Filou Munch Bunch yogurt. It's really got a layer of that creamy kind of sharper yogurty kind of character that comes out of it, and the way that goes together is really nice in my mind. So yeah, as I say, brown bready character, white bready character, that sharper yogurt, and I think because this is an imperial sour, it just shows that a little bit more. But you've also got some more tartness from the strawberries in this too. But yeah, lovely kind of yogurty sharpness coming out of it, and yeah, you get a little bit in that kind of yogurty layer toward the front of that middle third of your palate. You do start to get a little bit more of the vanilla coming out, and that becomes more and more prominent the further into the aftertaste that you go. And then, pardon me, above that, you have a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch type note coming out of this beer, which is again really quite nice. You have that little circle in the middle of your palate there above the yogurt, which is Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, and yeah, that sweetness comes out of the beer the further into the aftertaste that you go. But the middle third of your palate in this beer is quite straightforward, and as I've said about these kind of modern sour beers, they're very often like that. They're quite straightforward in terms of their flavour profile, but if they're done well, they're just really nice beers. This is no exception to that rule, I would say. So in terms of the middle third of your palate, I think we've said everything we need to. Let's have a look at the back third of the palate. So the border region in the border region between middle and back third of your palate in this beer, you get a little bit of bready build-up in this one, so you can feel there's a bit of brown bread in there, a little bit of white bread, and then some of the kind of oaty characters just in there. And as I've often said on the channel, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but they'll just come out at different intensities. But generally speaking, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. So yeah, on the back third of the palate, on the base, you've got that lovely kind of, you do have that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there, and it feels a little bit drier. Above that you get the wholemeal brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got a fluffier white bready layer sitting above that, which feels quite light and airy. And then above all of that you can feel some of the drier oaty characters just kind of going over the top of that, and then you start to get some of the kind of yeasty notes out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, for me, the kind of yeasty, the yeasty sort of notes that you get out of this one are quite interesting. It's like a dense white bready character. It's got a little bit of woodiness to it, and it feels like it's kind of wrapped in honeycomb. Something like that. I always get a little bit of honeycomb when it comes to the yeasty flavours of beers, but this sits above the kind of dry oaty character that creeps over the top of that back third of the palate. So yeah, dense, yeah, kind of nice dense white bready character in there, a little bit of honeycomb wrapped around it, and you've also got that nice kind of, yeah, you do have that nice kind of just honeycomb sweetness out of it, and definitely on that back third of the palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down together and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, tall back third of the palate and squashed together middle third of your palate. So yeah, I think that's the malty and yeasty side of this beer kind of squashed together. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's go on to that. So for me, in the back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of an earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal and more earthy, and as you push further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic. So yeah, the way that that goes together is quite nice. So yeah, a little bit more floral aromaticity in this one. Then round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy for sure, and you have that lovely little bit of grassiness coming out of the beer too. As I say, it's the green component in this beer is quite bright and has a little bit more zestiness to it, which I think is nice. But you can definitely feel it. One thing you'll always find with sour beers too is that if you add fruit as an adjunct, it is always going to suppress a little bit of the green component, and you can feel some of the aspects of the strawberries just pushing back against the kind of floral note and the grassiness in this beer as well. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the green component. Let's round off the tasting with a wee bit of a look at the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. You can feel a little bit of brown bread in the base, a little bit of white bread in the middle, and a wee touch of the oatiness on top. And then the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the bread crust, the brown bread, the white bread, the oats, and then the fruitiness just kind of comes in on top of that. So let's focus on that fruity side of the beer for now. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer is really interesting, because when I've had strawberry beers from Vault City before, they've always been a little bit more juicy. They've never been quite as sharp as this. So I don't know if that's just the recipe, or if that's the fact that this beer is a little bit older and I'm drinking it when it's obviously had it's quite obviously had a little bit more bottle fermentation going on with it. When I've since it was bought, because it is just after its best before date. So yeah, that's a thing with this one. So yeah, a little bit sharper and more tart. It could just be the variety of strawberries as well, that's the other thing. But when you take this beer in, you feel the really sharp tart strawberry notes coming out of the beer right away. You get the juiciness of the strawberries around the edge of the palate. Like I was saying, they suppress a little bit of the green component too, but you have that kind of candied strawberry note underneath, maybe a very slight touch of like blackcurrant and figs. Of course, these are placebo flavours, they're not actual flavours, but yeah, that's kind of how I perceive it. You can feel there's a little bit of like a juicy figgy character in the middle of that front third of your palate, and a little bit of a more like blackcurranty note further forward, and then yeah, the strawberries just sit on top of that and give you the tartness. But yeah, it's a really nice beer, this one. I have enjoyed this, but very sharp and tart compared to other things that we've had from Vault City in the past. So not sure if that's due to the age, the alcohol, or the type of strawberry or whatever that's used, but very nice beer, very, very nice beer for sure, and that's what you always get from Vault City, so thumbs up to them for this. But let's leave the tasting at that, and we'll round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel of this beer, I would say we're talking top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. You know, sour beers are always a little bit lighter in their mouthfeel for me, but for a sour beer it's pretty heavy, I think that's fair to say. It's kind of a creamy mouthfeel, but at the same time it's got a good little bit of oiliness to it, which I do quite like. You know, the creaminess brings out the oaty side of the beer and the kind of yogurty side of things, whereas the oiliness gives you a little bit more sweetness, you know, the Werther's original flavours and so on. So yeah, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied, I think is fair. In terms of IBUs, I think technically speaking this beer will be 0 IBUs, but there will be about 5 or 6 or something like that going on. You can definitely feel a little bit of hoppy character on the edge of your palate. And the fruity side of the beer, as I've said many a time in this video, this is one of the sharper and more tart sours that I've had from Vault City. Really, I would say, yeah, it's really quite tart and sharp compared to what I remember the other Vault City beers being, to be honest with you, because the sourness is quite mellow in many other beers, but that could be due to the age, it could be due to the variety of strawberries, or, you know, whatever. But I think this is very nice in that regard. So a good sharp tart impact on this one. It mellows out obviously the more that you drink of the beer, and you get a lot of juiciness and things coming out of it too. But yeah, lovely, lovely beer, this one, and very cool to feature this one on the channel for you. I just wish I'd done it a wee bit earlier, because obviously the bottle got a little bit excited now my dad's desk is covered in glitter, so I'm just curious to see whether he notices that, but cleaned it up fairly well. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. Lovely, smooth, sweet and creamy malt base, bit of sharpness, a little touch of hoppy character, gives you everything you'd expect of a good Vault City sour beer, this one, and it covers its alcohol very well, which is a bit dangerous when it's 9.5% ABV. But let's leave it there. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Vault City Brewing as well, and we will definitely return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But yeah, this is Strawberry Stars, a 9.5% imperial fruited sour beer with strawberries, fabulous glitter, a little bit of hibiscus and vanilla added into it. Really nice stuff, and very cool to review this for you here on the channel. So thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Vault City's social media, and I'll see you guys again on another review very shortly. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.